fast and try to collect all of these rolls of pennies. So the parents and the teachers say, "Go!" And I ran around the yard, and I did so well that I collected all of the rolls of pennies. And I remember the principal came over to me and said, "Angelo, you can keep one roll, but you have to share the rest." And I remember I was crying. I was so upset. But I did what the principal said. It was good advice. And I handed out the rest of my pennies. My grandfather came over to me to console me, and he gave me my very first silver dollar. And so what that taught me was sharing, being good, caring, or in other words, having good sportsmanship was more important than winning. So, fast forward to me being 16 years old when I first started to play tennis. And my best friend was a really good tennis player. His name was Rob, and he still lives in Hamden. He was a really good tennis player, and he was number 1 in New England when he was 10 and under, and 12 and under, and number 1 when he was 14 and under, and 18 and under, and he ended up playing Division I at Wisconsin. He was the best tennis player that I knew. So he was playing number 1 for Hamden High School. And the summer before my junior year, I showed an interest in tennis. And my brother and I went to our friend Rob and said, "Tennis looks like a cool sport. Do you think we should try out for the team?" And he said, "Yeah, you guys are athletic. You should try out. You never know." So we practiced every day during the summer to try to get good at tennis to make the team. There was a picture in February in the New Haven Register of us playing tennis, and we had shoveled off the court. There was snow everywhere else, and we had shoveled off the court, and we were really determined to try to make the team. So come my junior year as a walk-on, that means you weren't on the team previously, we both made the tennis team. Wow, it was really cool. And I remember my first tennis racket, my dad bought it at Caldor for $30. It was a Wilson Rally racket. Ironically, the name of the racket was Rally. And that was my first tennis racket. And I remember playing my first tennis tournament, and I got to the finals. It was the Hamden Town Tournament. And so in the finals, I was playing against someone that had taken many tennis lessons and was highly ranked as a junior. And he said, rather than play at the public courts that had cracks, why don't we play at his country club? So I didn't know any better, so he had home field advantage, and I played against him. His name was Matt. It was my very first tournament ever. And I remember the first set, he beat me 6-3. And the second set, I said, I'm going to run down every ball. I'm going to persevere, and I'm going to be patient and wait for my opportunity, and hopefully he makes a mistake. I'm going to get every ball back. So the second set I won in a tiebreak somehow, 7-6. And those of you that follow tennis, 7-6 is a close score. But the third set, he was so upset that someone like me took a set off someone like him that I ended up winning the third set 6-0. So that was my very first tennis tournament, and I ended up winning it. So my parents said, Angelo, maybe you're onto something with this tennis thing. So fast forward to when I was in college at UConn. And as a junior, I tried out for the team. The first 2 years, I was in honors engineering, and I had chemistry labs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I couldn't try out for the team. But my junior year, I switched to sports marketing, and my calendar opened up. I was able to try out for the team. So as a junior at UConn, I tried out and made the team. So I said, whoa, this tennis thing is kind of fun. I enjoy it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So I kept up with it. So much so that a good friend of mine, Scott, encouraged me to take a job in North Haven teaching tennis. Now, I really didn't know how to teach tennis, I just knew how to play, but he became my tennis teaching mentor. I looked up to him on really how to share my passion for tennis with others. So, unfortunately, he got sick, so to honor his legacy, as you saw in the video, my twin brother and I came up with the idea of setting a world record to honor his legacy and to raise money for charity. So, in 2006, we attempted to practice to set the world record for the longest tennis rally. Now, by a show of hands, how many people have ever played tennis before? Wow, that's great. That's a lot of people. So when you're practicing at a local court, let's say the Hamden High tennis courts, when you're practicing and you want to walk by the court, what do you do to be polite if the rally is still going? Yes?
Say excuse me.
Yeah, you say excuse me, and what else do you do? Yes?
Instead of walking in front, you go behind them.
Yeah, you go behind when the point is over, right? So one day at Hamden High, my brother and I were training for the world record for the longest rally, not noticing that there were two people waiting to go by. And about 10 minutes went by, and then we saw them in the corner of our eye, and we said, oh, we're practicing for a world record. You can go by. And that was our very first practice. So we thought rallying and setting a world record was easy. But in our very first practice, we missed 6 times in 1 hour. The world record at the time was about 15,000 strokes, and it took about 10 hours. That was the world record at the time. That was the record we were trying to beat. So in 2007 in Milford, Connecticut, we ventured off to try to set the world record. We were charity-minded and we wanted to give back, so we donated our time for 6 hours on a Saturday to give free tennis clinics to children like you. And then, at about 3 o'clock, we played a doubles pro-am against the number 7 player in the world and the head pro of the club and my brother and I. And then, after all that, at 4:30 p.m., we started the world record attempt. Unfortunately, that wasn't good planning. So about 2 hours later, my brother, Etere, misses in the bottom of the net. We go take a bathroom break, and I say to my brother, the bottom of the net? At least you could have missed in the top. We go right back out on the court. It was about 6:30 p.m., and we continued to rally. One of our motivators was to get on the news to promote our charities. So we knew that at 7 o'clock there was news, so we made it past 7 o'clock. Then we knew there was 11 o'clock news. Your parents would know that. Hopefully you're in bed by then. And then we made that, so the next news was at 5 a.m. So we rallied all night, and we made it to 5 a.m. And at 5:09 a.m., when I was at the service line, I was kind of falling asleep on my feet. I misjudged the ball, and I hit it into the top of the net, as you saw in the movie. So unfortunately, although we rallied for 10 hours and 39 minutes, 19,490 shots without missing, we failed to set the world record, which was 24,696. It had been broken within the year that we decided to try to break the record. So, we said, well, at least that's a US record. That's pretty good. And we used that confidence for the next year. We right away said, well, that's not good enough. We're going to try again next year. And we knew that failure is just a step toward success. So we said, okay, it was a misstep, but let's learn from it. And let's move on and try to set the record a year from then, which was August 9th and 10th of 2008. Now, how many of you here play basketball? Wow, okay. And I know my daughter Madison just joined the team. Okay, so who is one of the greatest basketball players of all time? He played for the Chicago Bulls. Yes.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, excellent. Michael Jordan. Now, believe it or not, people say that Michael Jordan is one of the best basketball players of all time, but he only holds one record in basketball. There is one statistic that Michael Jordan is ahead of everyone else in basketball, and you're never going to believe what it is. It is the most missed shots. Michael Jordan, the best basketball player of all time, holds the record for the most missed shots. Now, if you have a negative mindset, you would think, well, that means he's the worst basketball player of all time. But if you have a positive mindset, you know that every time you fail, you're closer to your goal. You're closer to succeed. He was not afraid to take and miss a shot when the game was on the line. He was not afraid to take a risk. And what I'm telling you today is, don't be afraid to go after your dreams and goals. So, on Saturday and Sunday, August 9th and 10th of 2008, my twin brother and I try it again. This time we started with a serve and we rallied from the baseline and we said, we don't care how long it takes, we're going to sit here and we're going to try to break this record. And I made a promise to him. I said, I won't miss if you don't miss. And he said the same thing back to me. And there we go, rallying for about 9 hours, 12,000 strokes, and then I got hungry. So we had a little unwrapped power bar on the side, on top of little Gatorades. And I ran off to the side. We would lob the ball very high 8 times, because that's how many times it took for me to eat half of a power bar. So we were rallying nice and high. Then when I was just finishing my power bar, I tried to level out my stroke, and unfortunately I miscalculated and the ball hit the top of the net. But luckily, it dribbled over and my brother ran up and flipped the ball back. And we continued. So we called that the power bar panic. And my brother declared, no more eating. So we continued to rally for 14 hours and 31 minutes till a minute past midnight, when we knew we had the world record, thousands of shots in hand. We rallied for 25,944 shots, and we were Guinness World Record holders. So that was on August 9th. We started on August 8th, we finished on August 9th, and so when Ripley, believe it or not, wrote the story, here's what they said. Tennis rally. In August 2008, at North Haven, Connecticut, twin brothers Ettore and Angelo Rossetti played a continuous rally that lasted nearly 15 hours, with a total of 25,944 shots. The rally had nearly come to an end hours earlier at around 12,000 strokes, when Angelo awkwardly hit a shot as he simultaneously tried to eat a power bar. But Ettore raced forward to save the day. Oh, thanks. Oh, I didn't mean the gravy, but oh, thanks. That's what they wrote. That's okay. I had that in the back of my mind. Ripley's Believe It or Not. Okay. I almost failed and my brother saves the day. Okay. Duly noted. We tried to raise more money for charity because it was not about setting the record, but it was about what the record stood for. It was to honor our friend who got sick and to raise money for charity. So we were able to get a company to convince them to give $1 million for anyone in the world that could break our record. And so in 2009 in Milford, on a certain day, 8 teams had signed up and went and tried to break our record. And my wife said to me, Angelo, I don't get it. You're giving up $1 million from a company you got to incent people to break your own record? You want people to break your record? And I said, no, it's not about me having the record. It's about the publicity that the charity would get and the money we can raise for charity. So, the 2 contestants lasted an hour and a half, and unfortunately they missed. So, 5 years after the record, my wife mentions to me that there was a comment on Facebook, and don't go on Facebook unless you talk to your parents first. And it was on my birthday. I was born on January 21st. And a friend of mine from New York, a sports psychologist and a person that works with these Olympic athletes, says, happy birthday to my friend Angelo, the world record holder for the longest tennis rally. And my wife said someone from Germany posted, former, meaning the record might be broken. So I quickly went onto a German website, and sure enough, 2 gentlemen, a father and a son, broke our record 5 years after they rallied for 50,970 shots. But they came up with a method that was only inches from each other doing a volley. We had rallied from the baseline. But Guinness World Records doesn't know the difference. So they were the new record holders. So I called my brother, I said, our record has been broken. He said, do you want to attempt to reset the record? I said, only if we can get that same $1 million and give it all to save the children. This is the hat that I'm wearing, and this is where my brother works full-time in Fairfield. So we were able to negotiate with the company again to supply $1 million to save the children's charity directly if we broke the record. So, August 8th of last year at Weston Racquet Club, where I direct the club, we set out to try to reset the record. In training and preparing for the record, every night, on Friday night, when the club would close at 6 o'clock, and since I worked there, I had the keys, we would start practicing. And we practiced for about a year. And the last 2 months before August 8th of last year, we would rally at 6 o'clock, and our first goal was to rally an hour without missing. And we did that. Second goal was 3 hours without missing. And we did that. Third goal was to break our former world record of 25,944 shots in practice. And we did that. But it was about 2 a.m. And I was driving home on 95, and all of a sudden I hear, woo, woo, and a police officer pulls me over, and he said, where are you coming from? I said, Weston Racquet Club. He said, and what were you doing? And he saw tennis rackets and bags and cameras and equipment in my back seat. And I said, you're not really going to believe me. And he goes, I've heard a lot of weird things. Try me. I said, well, we were just trying to practice to reset the Guinness World Record for the longest tennis rally. He goes, how long was it? Well, it was 14 hours and 31 minutes. He goes, that's pretty impressive, but get out of your car. He goes, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, I don't know, I wasn't driving that straight, I was a little sleepy. He goes, no, that's not why I pulled you over. You see this light bulb above your license plate? It's burnt out. And according to Connecticut state law, your light above your license plate has to be working so that police officers can see your license plate. So if you get nothing else from today's presentation, destination, make sure to tell your parents that the light bulb above their license plate worked. It was a $118 lesson that I'll never forget. So believe it or not, August 8th comes. We start in the morning. We rally for 5.5 hours. And my brother misses in the net. After 30,576 shots. So then you're probably asking, if you failed, how are you in the 2017 Guinness World Records book on page 102? Not that I'm keeping track. And what happened was, sometimes in life, when you reach for the moon, you get a star. Guinness World Record informed us that because we never let the ball bounce, besides the serve and the return, and we kept the ball in the air without resting or taking breaks for 30,576 shots, and the Germans only did 10,000, we had set a new world record for the longest tennis volley grab. Give out with questions. So 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes. I'm gonna make it quick. So, where did we set the first world record in 2008? Yes. Not New Haven. Yes. Yes, North Haven. Good job. Okay. What was the name of the world record? Yes. What was it? Tennis, the longest tennis rally, yes! Okay. In what city in Connecticut do I work right now? Not Fairfield, my brother works at Fairfield. Begins with a W. Begins with a W. Weston, close enough. Okay. What sport did we set the record? Yeah.